Member Wright, Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Merrill.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Nearing.
Here, thank you.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Councilmember Partial.
Here.
Labor Representative Perkins. Councilmember Peterson. Mayor Roberts.
I'm here.
Chair, we have a quorum of board members. For our alternates, we have Councilmember Gallagher and Mayor Vanny in the room and Councilmember Araya online.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
We're going to move to public comment, and each speaker has 3 minutes to provide those comments. Where comments must be relevant to community transit services, programs, projects, or activities. So in the room, is there anybody who would like to provide comments? We'd invite you to the microphone. All right. How about remote? Do we have anybody with, just raise your hand, who'd like to provide a comment online? I'm not seeing any. All right. So we have a couple of presentations. We're going to start with the Salmon Safe Certification. Rick. We're gonna turn it over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we'll have Alexa Russo, who manages our sustainability program, come up and introduce our guest and lead the presentation.
Hello. Oh, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa Russo, and I am the Senior Sustainability Program Manager here at Community Transit. I am here to present something very exciting today. As you may know, Community Transit has a 5-year sustainability action plan, and within that plan, we have a goal to promote stormwater stewardship. As one of the tactics to achieve that, we have committed to maintain Salmon Safe certification and achieve Salmon Safe certification. The importance of this certification as a transit agency cannot be understated. Our fleet has the opportunity to leak and drip fuels and coolants, release brake pad dust onto impervious surfaces in our parking lots and bus yards, and pollute our waterways. As rainwater flows across these surfaces, it ends up in storm drains and eventually the Puget Sound. As an agency, we have robust programs and practices to help lessen the impacts of our operations. However, there are always opportunities to improve further. As of today, I am thrilled to announce that we will be the first transit agency to achieve Salmon Safe certification. I would now like to welcome Ellen Southard from Salmon Safe to tell us more.
Thank you all for having me here today, and congratulations. Also just want to thank Alexa for her leadership. She has been an advocate for Puget Sound and for Salmon Safe for a number of years, going back to her days at UW-Bothell, which is also Salmon Safe certified. So we're grateful that she wanted to partner with us and work with you on this achievement. And just a couple things about Salmon Safe. So we're a watershed-based tool that helps support the biological needs of salmon and Puget Sound recovery. Puget Sound, as you know, is the second largest estuary in the country and is a really delicate ecosystem, and an ecosystem that contributes greatly to our economy here in Washington State. Commercial salmon fishing alone provides over 200,000 jobs and $14 billion to our state's economy. So when we're protecting salmon, we're protecting jobs and we're protecting the economy as well. And that's just commercial fishing, and that doesn't include tribal fishing. And of course, salmon are integral to the well-being, both financially and spiritual well-being of our indigenous people from the Salish Sea. So it's a very important program that we're running here. I also happen to serve on the Ecosystems Board of Puget Sound Partnership. So I live and breathe this work every day and have for about 30 years. And so being able to welcome you into the Salmon Safe family and to see the kind of stewardship that you will provide over these next 5 years as we partner and work with you on your operations and maintenance programs is really significant. So, 80% of stormwater pollution comes off of our roads and our parking lots. And of course, a lot of the facilities that you own are hardscaped. And so by committing to Salmon Safe, you've committed to a clean water policy for your facilities, but also to habitat, to operations and maintenance, and water conservation, all things that are really important for salmon recovery here in our region. We always love a first, and you are absolutely the first transit program, not only in the region, but in the country to make this kind of watershed commitment. So pat yourselves on the back for that. And you're amongst many other community leaders. I mentioned UW, but also Vulcan, Department of Ecology, Google, Microsoft. We've worked with many programs like that. The city of Shoreline not only has permitting incentives for Salmon Safe, but committed as an entire city to manage all of the city-owned projects to Salmon Safe standards. So you're truly amongst many great leaders and are proving that when we work together and we partner, we can really count on Puget Sound recovery. And at a time like this, especially when we're facing a lot of impacts from climate change, we need more and more leaders like Community Transit. And we hope that you will create a challenge for Sound Transit. We're in discussions with them now, but I think hearing about another transit agency always kind of ups the ante on where they might take some of their own processes and projects. So with that, I would love to present, I think, the CEO and the board chair with your Salmon Safe plaque. I understand it's going to hang in your lobby and be a symbol really for the environmental stewardship that all of your employees can be proud of. So thank you very much for having me here today. And
Right. That's you know what kind of salmon? This is steelhead. But
well, our environmental.
okay.
And it's also a wild salmon because it's got its.
Yeah,
appetite.
yes.
Absolutely.
The adipose
Yeah.
fin is there, yes.
Where do you want us? Let's,
How would you like it?
Well, yeah.
get the legs out.
I agree. Why not, Alexa?
Yeah, so Alexis, let's add a couple of questions. All right, cool. Thank you very much. You think that can happen? So we probably do a lot of salmon restoration as well, so.
Well,
It's very reflective.
we're on call
Yeah.
for you for the next 5 years. Anything you need, you know how to find.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. Good to
Take
meet
care.
you.
Likewise.
What's a salmon call sound like?
Check it out after the meeting.
Thank you very much, Ellen and Alexa. All right, we're going to have the 2025 year-end performance report. Olivia Woods has that for us.
Hello. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Olivia Woods, and I'm with our Research and Analytics Division, and I'm going to walk through our Community Transit 2025 year-end performance report. Okay, we'll start off looking at our whole system together. So these are all of our services combined. Overall, last year, we saw a 13% increase in the number of rides we provided compared to 2024. So we went from 8.4 million that year up to 9.5 million last year. So an additional 1.1 million rides over the course of the year. So that's a pretty big jump. Overall, most of our rides are being provided on our bus and Swift service. So 46% on our bus, 45% on our Swift, 5% on our Vanpool service, 2% on DART, and then 3% on our Zip shuttle service. And then overall, throughout the year, we provided about 30,000 rides every single weekday, 19,000 rides on a Saturday, and 15,000 rides on Sundays, each of which is 3,000 higher than the previous year. Okay, so a quick check-in on our 2025 boardings goal. We set a really ambitious goal to hit 10 million rides last year, and we did really good. We got about 93% of those rides completed. For Vanpool, Dart, and Zip Shuttle Alderwood, we met our goal or exceeded them. However, our Swift and bus services did end up a little short. We set our big ambitious goal based off of some pretty optimistic projections around light rail coming to Linwood. And we just didn't see as big of a boost as we thought we might. However, we actually did really good last year. So for the amount of revenue hours that we put out, we saw a really good return on our investment. And as I already showed, we had a big growth in those boardings. So still a really good story. All right, up next, we're just going to walk through each of the different service types. We're going to combine our Swift and bus service into just fixed route, and then we'll walk through Vanpool, Dart, and then finish off with Zip Shuttle. So our fixed route bus service saw an increase of 10% and ended up at 8.6 million rides last year. Next, we look at our customers. For fixed route, we have a total number of unique customers in a week. That's the metric we use. It's an estimated one. And so we estimated last year that we provided rides to 37 unique customers each week, which was a 14% increase from the previous year. So about 5,000 more people using our service this year. Boardings per revenue hour, this is our measure of productivity. We saw a slight decrease of 2% last year. So we went down from 19.6 in 2024 to 19.1. However, this is still really showing the impacts of our network restructure from September of 2024. And that's when we retired a lot of our very productive commuter routes that were going downtown. And so this is just kind of showing that new local service that we're operating and still very productive. Next up is on-time performance, a measure of reliability. We saw an increase of 1.2 percentage points. So this means that we departed our stops on time 83.4% of the time. Our last measure here, another for reliability, is completed trips. So we provided about 600,000 revenue trips last year, and of those we scheduled about 600,000 revenue trips last year, and of those we completed 99.7%. This was a small drop compared to the previous year of 0.2 percentage points. Here is our fixed route bus regional comparison. So you'll see on the left of this bar chart, we have all of the local transit agencies in Washington that report to the NTD, National Transit Database. And so what we do is we look on average for our region, how's the region doing, and then compare it to community transit. So overall, the region saw an increase of 6% compared to the previous year, and community transit was up there at a 10% increase. Lastly, for fixed route, this is our weekly year-over-year trend chart. And so you'll see that we've been having this very continuous, steady growth since after the pandemic. You've got 2021 down there on the bottom, and if you read those years up, they're all aligned nice and sequentially stacking on top of the other. And 2025 was no different. We just see this continued year-over-year growth. And last year, we ended up providing about 168,000 rides every week, which was about 16,000 more than the previous year. All right, we're going to switch to our Vanpool service. Another positive increase here in our boardings, up 16% from the previous year, and we provided 443,000 rides on our Vanpool service. For our Vanpool customer metric, we look at the total number of unique people served over the course of the year. So the rest of these are slightly different than fixed route. So in 2025, we provided service to 1,980 unique customers on Vanpool alone. That was 50 more than the previous year. Next up, we have our vans on the road. So this total number of active groups that are commuting to work and back. This year, we had an increase of 4%, a total of 295 active groups. That's 12 more than the previous year. Riders per van per trip. This is on average how many people are in a trip commuting to work and back. So a small increase here, up from 3.6 to 3.8 last year. And then lastly, for Vanpool, we have days operated per van per month. And this one is continuing to trend up as well. After the pandemic, we didn't have a lot of people going back to the office very often. So we just keep watching that kind of return to office here. So on average was 16 days in 2024 and then up to 17 this last year. And here's our Vanpool regional comparison. set up similar to the previous one. On average, we increased 9% for the region, and community transit is at the top there at a 15% increase in boardings. On to our DART service. We saw an increase in boardings here as well. So we ended up 8% higher than the previous year and provided 163,000 rides. Our customers also increased, up 12%, and we provided service to 3,175 unique customers on our DART service. Boardings per revenue hour for DART has remained similar for many years now. It sits about 1.75. Our on-time reliability, so this is looking at how often a trip is departing on time or arriving, or we're dropping somebody off on time. And we did see a small decrease here of 2.5 percentage points. And out of all the trips we completed, we were on time 59% of the time. Lastly, for DART, we have a very large name metric, trips meeting travel time standards. And this one is really looking at comparing how long it takes to take a DART trip, and then saying if somebody took that same trip on fixed route, how long would it take? And we just want to make sure that our customers are not having excessively long times on DART and making sure it's equitable. So we have certain standards around that. And last year we found that 79.3% of our trips met those standards. And that was 1 percentage point higher than the previous year. And these last two metrics here are being worked on very heavily by a team here at Community Transit with our vendor. We acknowledge that 59% of the time is not good enough, and there's a lot of work happening here to improve that customer experience. Lastly, for DART, we have our weekly boardings chart. This one's not quite as pretty and clean as our fixed route, but what you see is kind of mid-year 2023, we started really increasing in boardings for that service, and that continued about through halfway of 2024, where we then kind of just leveled off, and we've kind of started to hit some sort of stable level for our boardings on our DART service. So this year, we provided 3,200 rides on average every week. That was about 250 more than the previous year. All right, we made it to the last service, Zip Shuttle service. We have some very big numbers and some interesting trends here. For Zip Shuttle, we saw an increase of 348% in our boardings, and there's a couple of things going on here. We launched 3 new Zip Shuttle zones at the end of 2024, so that's going to add a lot of ridership. However, we also saw a very large increase in our Zip Shuttle service in Alderwood, so 84% growth just in that one zone alone, and then adding the 3 other zones on top of it. So we ended up about 302,000 rides being provided on our Zip Shuttle service. Okay, for our customers, we saw a unique 8,900 unique individuals using Zip Shuttle service in those 4 zones last year. Boardings per revenue hour increased by 20%, up from 2.5 to 3. And our wait time did increase slightly by 4%. So on average, last year, customers had to wait about 40 seconds longer. However, if you look at just Zip Shuttle Alderwood, that zone saw customers waiting on average 30 seconds less. So that increase in wait time is really related to the new zones and working out efficiencies there. Lastly, we have our shared trips for Zip Shuttle, and this is really looking at customers who were not traveling together but ended up sharing a trip or a vehicle together, and we saw an increase of 31 percentage points. So 43% of all the trips were shared between customers. Lastly, here's our Zip Shuttle year-over-year chart, and you've got your new zones launched in 24 on the right, and then in February there, we have marked that we transitioned to a new vendor. We went from MedStar to VIA, and VIA had some extra efficiencies that we were able to gain through there, and so that's why you're really seeing that increase in shared rides and boardings per revenue hour ticking up. So last year, we provided 5,830 rides every week. And I'm going backwards. All right, and then last, to summarize everything, we continue to see growth in boardings and customers on every single one of our services. We did have some small decreases in performance, however, we kind of talked through those. And then lastly, we provided 93% of those boardings that we were hoping to provide last year. And with that, thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
Yeah, when we go back to the slide for the fixed bus on time performance.
Fixed route?
Yeah.
Yep.
My question on that was, do the problems in the delay, on-time performance, and the problems in the on-time performance is that in a small group of uh, routes that we know the cause of, or is this spread more generally over the whole bus system?
Well, we do hold our Swift service to a very high standard, and so those tend to show a lower on-time performance. So our definition for on-time performance is anything that has a frequency of every 12 minutes or less. We expect you to be there within plus or minus of 2 minutes of that amount of time. So that one has a very, very small margin of error. So we do see that being a lot lower for our Swift service. I do have notes on where our other routes are. Let's see. So we see it's kind of over the place here. We've got Route 103 and Route 424, 271. So we're out in Gold Bar, Snohomish, and Linwood City Center to Hardison Road are our three lowest non-Swift routes. So I think a lot of it depends on how long the route is, travel times, where you're running into traffic, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so it's not necessarily problematic. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I know our scheduling team is always trying to refine those travel times and see if they can get that up too.
All right, Mayor Roberts.
Does, are you seeing Zip cut into the DART performance at all? Or do you think that will happen as Zip expands?
I think it could happen. I haven't found a great way to test it. We did go back and try to think about how we might track that and have not come up with a good method yet. But I know it's a good opportunity for people to use Zip for that service as well. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking the same thing. We'd see a drop in DART a little as people were using the Zip, but we saw an increase, so that's good. Yeah. Any further questions? Okay. All right.
Right.
Excellent job, Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, CEO's report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good to see you all today. Bulk of my report today will be intergovernmental in nature with a couple of operational updates. So I'm pleased to report I had the chance to go back to Washington, D.C. last week and meet with members of our congressional delegation, staff for both our senators, and then Congressman Larson, Congresswoman Del Bene, and Schreier. Purpose of my trip was to really express gratitude to them for their support of our bus replacement grant last year, and also the $7 million in earmarks that they were able to secure in the most recent appropriations bill for our capital program. So first and foremost, wanted to thank them for their stalwart support of our mission. I was able to brief them on the status of the Gold Line project and where we are lining up into the capital investment grant queue. Also gave them updates on ZIP, some of the information that you just heard from Olivia, and also an update on our safety and security program. So had a little bit of conversation with Congressman Larson around the reauthorization process that is also underway. And I went and visited FTA and had a meeting with the senior staff there, their chief safety officer and the head of their planning and capital programs, and briefed them as well on the Gold Line, how we're doing on that, when we expect to be entering the New Starts application process. Also gave them a lengthy briefing on our safety and security program, as that's been a priority for this administration, and that was very well received. So good trip overall. Got out there ahead of the rush, the AWC and the APTA rush that we know is coming here this spring. The members always appreciate that. Last Friday, attended the groundbreaking in Bothell for Sound Transit's Stride BRT service, and that's a big point of partnership between us and Sound Transit. Our Green Line extension project, as you all know, will be integrating with Sound Transit Light Rail and BRT, and we'll share 3 stations in Bothell, where customers will be able to move between both services and access UW Bothell, also access a connection over to the Shoreline Light Rail Station from Mill Creek. So really great celebration, and good to see that project going forward. On the Olympia front, we are near the end of the session, 7 days till sine die, so which is next Thursday, obviously, and the governor after that has 20 days to act on the legislation that is sent his way. Transportation budgets came out last week, and we're pleased to see our priorities and our funding projects are in place for Gold Line and eventually for the Silver Line. We had been working to get out-year funding for the Regional Mobility Grant and TDM programs and the rideshare grants restored. And happy to report that that has happened in both the House and the Senate budgets, so that's great. That Regional Mobility Grant program has been a really important one for us. Since 2007, we've leveraged about 65 million out of that program for our projects and both BRT and facilities. So really good outcome there so far, holding our breath to see if we get over the finish line there. Also on the federal front, swinging back that way for a second, I mentioned the 7 million in earmarks for this fiscal year. That was 2 million for SWIFT from Senator Murray for the Gold Line design. Sorry, 3 million. 2 million for the Green Line extension, sponsored by Representative Del Bene, and then 2 million additional for bus replacement from Congressman Larson. So really super helpful to our efforts. And of course, because the appropriations bill passed relatively late in the cycle, they've moved right into the earmark process for the next fiscal year, FY27. So we're working with their staffs to identify priorities for the next round. On the authorization front, Congressman Larson remains very committed to trying to get an authorization bill through the House this spring. There's talk of trying to get something reported out of the T&I committee by Memorial Day. So a lot of headwinds there and a lot of uncertainties around whether the Senate and the administration are going to come to the table, but our congressman is trying very hard to get those programs extended. Mark Molinaro left as FTA administrator last Friday. So FTA right now is without senior leadership. So it's unclear whether they're going to refill that position or whether the secretary's office is going to take a bigger role there. So anyway, we're watching that very closely. On the operations front, I'm excited to report on what we've been up to this week. If any of you noticed, Sound Transit's been doing more maintenance than usual on the one line overnight. So they've expanded their maintenance window to begin at 10 p.m. So they're shutting down the line early every evening this week. And we've been providing a bus bridge from 10 p.m. to the end of the service day every day, along with King County Metro. So that's something that they asked us about, and we've been working on since last fall to put in place. And we're operating essentially 8 coaches along with King County Metro to build up a 10-minute headway in the I-5 corridor, serving those stations basically from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. We've seen up to 300 riders per evening, filling the gap for the light rail system. The operations group, transportation and maintenance have done a great job. It's a little bit different than a daytime bus bridge. It's not just a matter of finding vehicles and assigning drivers and getting them out there. We have to have our full suite of customer-facing services available much later into the evening than we normally do. So it's been a lot of learning, and it's been very successful. So hats off to Roland and his team and Molly and her team for putting that in place. And if you need to ride the train late at night this week or next and it's not there, you can take one of our buses. On the service reliability front, we've been reporting each month here about how that's been going, and I'm pleased to report that over the last 5 weeks, we've seen a much better picture. So we've averaged 99.8% of trips delivered in February and early March, averaging about 30 missed trips a week. And that's much closer to normal. That's about 80% less than the preceding 5 weeks, December and January. So we're seeing the trend in the right direction, and a lot of that has to do with catching up on the maintenance backlog with vehicles that have been down awaiting service. So we're cautiously optimistic about the trend ahead. We are still trying to get stabilized there because later this year we'll be bringing additional Sound Transit Express service over to direct operation from TransDev. So Olivia flagged the reliability metrics for DART, and that is of significant concern to us. Contracted services team, and again, Roland have been working with the TransDev senior leadership to set expectations about on-time performance and service quality. We've just renewed that contract, and so we had a frank and productive kind of opening dialogue with them about what we expect them to do now that we've upped that contract. So it's going to take hands-on management and good communication between us and the contractor, but as we start out on the new contract period, we've made our requirements and our expectations clear. On the zero emissions front, we have 2 items on today's board agenda, an action item around ordering 10 new battery electric buses. And then on the consent agenda, you'll see an item there for installing charging infrastructure over at Cash Park. Both of those came through strategic alignment last week or 2 weeks ago. So we're excited about broadening our use of those vehicles. We've learned a lot from our 40-foot BEB that we've been testing here over the past year plus, and it's performed really well. So we have a high degree of confidence that acquiring additional vehicles of that type will perform well in our local network. So we're excited to move that forward. And I'll conclude with some good news. Our vaunted finance team has once again received the prestigious Government Finance Officers Association Excellence in Financial Reporting Award for our 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So it's our 36th consecutive award and represents a very high continuing bar for financial stewardship. So congratulations to Unju and Sophie, Mary, the whole team. And that concludes my report.
Excellent.
Thank
36
you.
years. That's, I don't know how many people can say that. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. All right, Executive Committee met on February the 20th. Councilmember Matsumoto Wright, Mayor Naring, Mayor Roberts, and I attended. The CEO report was provided, and the next committee meeting is scheduled for March 24th at 3 o'clock. And for the Finance Performance and Oversight Committee, Councilmember Merrill.
The Finance Performance and Oversight Committee meeting was held on February 19th, 2026 in hybrid format. Councilmember Payne, Councilmember Partial, and I attended. Committee reviewed and recommended 1 item to the consent agenda, which was the approval of the January 2026 monthly expenditures and payroll vouchers, items 7C through H on the consent agenda. The committee reviewed and recommended 1 item to the action agenda. We'll see that later. Approve the programmatic procurement approval for Cash Park Transition Project. We reviewed 3 reports. The Q4 2025 year-end performance report. Olivia Woods, Director of Research and Analytics, Planning and Development, presented the 2025 year-end performance report, the same presentation that was provided earlier today. We saw the Q4 2025 Security Services update. Scott Eastman, Senior Manager of Security and Energy Emergency Management, presented the Q4 2025 Security Services update. A copy of this report is in the packet. And the sales report for January 2026 unaudited. In January 2026, Community Transit collected approximately $16.8 million in sales tax revenue, approximately $192,000 more than budgeted. A copy of this report is also included in the packet. The next Finance Performance and Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. Thursday, March 19th, 2026 via Zoom. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Merrill. All right, Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee, Council Chair Dunn.
Yes, the Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee meeting was held remotely on February 18th at 2 p.m. The meeting was attended by Councilmember Merrill, who chaired the meeting in my absence, so thank you. Mayor Roberts and then Councilmember Matsumoto Wright. The committee reviewed and forwarded 1 item to consent on today's agenda, which was award RFQ 2025-120, the Facilities Master Plan, Phase 8A, Cash Park, Zero Emissions, Phase 1 Design. The committee reviewed and forwarded 2 action items to today's agenda. which is award ITP number 2025-139, 10 replacement, 40-foot battery electric buses, and award RFP 2025-138, speed and reliability prioritization study. The next meeting is Wednesday, March 18th at 2 p.m. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Council Chair Dunn. All right, would anybody like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Anybody? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
All right, I've got a motion by Councilmember Merrill and seconded by Councilmember Payne. Okay, I can go there. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that will pass unanimously. We'll start with our first action item, the award of ITB 2025-139, the 10 replacement 40-foot battery electric buses. Jay Geheim.
Hello, everyone. Again, it's been quite some time since I had the pleasure of speaking with the board. Maybe I just have to be closer. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My name is Jay Heim. I am the manager of the Zero Emissions team here at Community Transit, and I am charged with figuring out this conversion of our heavy-duty fleet to zero-emission propulsion buses. As mentioned, we have an action item on the agenda today, and I am here in support of that action item with a briefing on some of the experience that we've had with our pilot bus and configuration items associated with that unit. So if I can hit the clicker, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, I will start off today with a bit of a program overview. I know that we have some new board members, so welcome everyone. For folks who have not had a briefing on the Zero Emissions program, we've been at this for quite some time. So I'll provide a little bit of background about the program itself and the actions that we've taken so far. I'll talk about our side-by-side pilot. So as Rick mentioned, we have 2 of these 40-foot buses and have been running those with some heavy learnings in the last couple of years. I'll talk briefly about a concept called opportunity charging and how that might benefit our future fleet deployments and expansion, funding composition for this program, and then ultimately the recommendation for award. So a little trip down the Wayback Machine here. We started the Zero Emissions program at the agency in the 2021-2022 timeframe with a feasibility study. That feasibility study was intended to perform a bit of a market scan, take a look at what other peer agencies had done in this industry, and really baseline some expectations for our own transition. So taking a look at our routes, the topography that we serve, which is pretty diverse. We have a lot of rural routes. We have some hills out in Mukilteo. We have some trips down to Seattle and then all the way out to Gold Bar and others. So quite a diverse and large service area, and understanding which technology works best, what are the measures of success that other agencies have had, what kind of roadblocks could we imagine running into ourselves, and how might we mitigate those. So we concluded that feasibility study in 2022 with some on-paper assumptions about how technology might perform based on all of that industry learning. We advanced into what we called the beta pilot. Many folks will remember the 60-foot articulated BYD battery electric coach that we leased for about a year and tested quite extensively along the BRT routes and then also some of our local service. One of the key assumptions that we came out of the feasibility with was that battery electric bus on our BRT routes may prove challenging. And we are a data-driven organization. Olivia gave us a great presentation on a lot of data. And so we wanted to collect some data where the rubber meets the road and understand exactly how these vehicles perform. We concluded that beta pilot in the 2023 timeframe, confirming those assumptions that battery electric bus would be difficult in its current state on our BRT service, but did have some optimistic findings supporting additional deployment with 40-foot vehicles on some of our local, at the time, commuter and other service. We dove into the side-by-side pilot in the 2023-2024 timeframe with a purchase of one 40-foot battery electric bus that you can kind of see the tail end of in this picture from Gillig, and one fuel cell electric hydrogen bus from New Flyer. Um, the key assumptions there, again, that we wanted to test was that 40-foot platforms would work for local routes primarily, to confirm some of the assumptions again from feasibility, and that fuel cell bus would be better for some of our longer routes, with significantly more on-road time and longer distance. We continue to run this pilot and gather quite a bit of learnings. We put the battery electric bus into revenue service in October of 2024. So we have over a year of revenue facing trips with that vehicle. I will share some kind of preliminary findings of our testing with that in a subsequent slide here. And then you are here. So we're at a decision point now where we've built confidence, both operationally with our coach operators, our dispatchers, administrative folks, planners, and vehicle maintenance group, that the battery electric bus seems to be working well enough for us to consider expanding that fleet as kind of a first initial step here. So this action item is in support of replacing some aging double deckers in our fleet replacement strategy with 10 of these battery electric buses. So I will move on here. I'm always happy to come back for questions later. So battery electric bus performance. We started off with non-revenue testing, and that's tantamount to simulated service. So we have an operator behind the wheel driving actual routes, actual trips that a customer might see, but not picking anyone up. We wanted to make sure that folks had a positive experience riding these buses before we started serving trips. So to that end, we had a target for reliable, uninterrupted mileage on those vehicles before we would consider advancing it into revenue service. So you can see here we had about 2,800 miles of non-revenue testing, quite a few of driven hours, and about 46 unique trips that we undertook before we considered that vehicle eligible for revenue service. You will see an efficiency figure there, and I'll get to the efficiency in just a moment. But they're a little bit inverse here, and that's an interesting one. For the revenue service data, so since we put it in revenue service, in that first year of operation, we served 162 days worth of trips for just shy of 18,000 miles traveled. Among many routes, primarily in the South County and then up into the Lake Stevens, Granite Falls area for some of our extended range tests. The efficiency numbers are interesting here. So efficiency for battery electric bus is almost like golf. A lower number is better. So you'll see in our non-revenue testing, we were at an average of about 2.44 kilowatt hours per mile. That's our, miles per gallon type efficiency. One of the key assumptions that we had going into this that we have also confirmed in our testing is that operator behavior with the vehicle has a huge impact on the overall efficiency and therefore capability of this vehicle type. What we had also learned and presumed from peer agency research was that the more wheel time they get with the vehicles, the better that becomes. So they become familiar with behaviors like rolling onto the accelerator, allowing the vehicle to kind of coast down slight declines for regenerative braking purposes. And so we're already starting to see some improvements in efficiency, even with just this single bus. So we're arriving at about 2.17 kilowatt hours per mile, which is very much in line with industry averages for our service area. So this all is reflective of a positive experience overall. My favorite takeaway from coach operator feedback is that it drives like a bus, which is a really good thing when you're testing out new technology. But the bus also performs very well on hilly routes. It's got a lot of torque for those of you who enjoy cars like I do. Love that torque. So it climbs very well, gets up to speed, and is generally a pleasure to drive. I mentioned opportunity charging. So there's two main mechanisms by which a vehicle can charge, and this is not dissimilar to your own cell phones. We can plug the bus in, and that's just a cord straight into a plug. And then there are two other methods for charging not at the depot. The first one is pantograph. So anyone who's seen the King County deployments, it's a big arm that comes down on a boom looking thing that connects to some rails on top of the bus. The other method is called inductive charging or wireless charging. So if you were to put your phone down on a wireless charging pad, for example, there's no plug in, plug out. It just kind of sits there and regains its energy. Um, our bus is configured with a similar type of technology for inductive charging, and you'll see a couple pictures here. The one in the middle is probably the most representative of what that looks like in the roadway. So these tiles are buried in the road, kind of at surface level. The bus pulls up to a designated spot, which you can see on kind of the left picture there with those two red lines. The coach kneels, so it's like a super kneel almost. It gets very low to the ground and then charges dynamically right there. It's very easy to do this. It doesn't require significant alignment. There's not a lot of moving parts like you would have with the pantograph. Less things in the roadway to hit, less things in the way of customers. So our preference is inductive charging, and we've had great testing using Everett's deployments. They've been a good partner in allowing us to test this on our vehicle. The benefit of opportunity charging is that it allows you to extend the range or the duration by which a vehicle is in service. So instead of having to plug it in, run it around when it's out of juice, you bring it back and plug it in again, you can kind of do top-up charges over the course of the service day. And this technology has proven effective with our own moderate testing. And so we will include this as a configuration item for both this order here and also future builds. It's not absolutely mandatory for success to have this in place. We have somewhere between 20 and 30% of all of our routes could be eligible for completion of service without having this technology, but it makes it very easy for us to expand the fleet and assign buses across the board if they all have the same tech. So we've had very good success with this. It's been very optimism generating, I would suppose, with the planning team. As Rick mentioned, we've identified a spot in the Cache Park facility to support charging. So it's great to have buses. We have to be able to fuel them. To that end, we intend to use the plug-in variant of charging with these vehicles. We had a couple workshops with a pretty wide audience to identify the most advantageous site from a utility integration standpoint. So getting this amount of power, this is a small number, 1.5 megawatts. Doesn't look like a big number, but that's like a tremendous amount of power. So getting enough power to the location easily, not disrupting current operations or future operations in this transition period when we might be building this out, and also ensuring that this kind of dovetails well with future plans for zero emission expansion. This was the most advantageous site to select. So we will dive into design here based on the consent agenda approval. Thank you very much for that. In the coming weeks and months, and put together a plan to install chargers and dispensers supporting these vehicles. You might ask, when is all of this going to happen? That's a lot of the how and the what. So for the when, if we put in an order for the battery buses very shortly here, we're looking at somewhere between a 12 and 18-month delivery window for the first bus to roll off the production line and arrive at our base. So those would start rolling in at the end of 2027, which is convenient because with infrastructure design and construction build, that would conclude just about the same time, which would prepare us for a revenue service deployment around 2028. I won't promise a specific date today because there's a lot of time between now and then and many things that could change. But we will endeavor to have these in service in 2028 as soon as reasonably possible. This project is also a great use case for a funding partnership. So we have good federal support and good state support within this overall funding mix, to the extent that our local share for both the vehicles and the design of the infrastructure is about 21% overall. And so with that, I will make a recommendation that the that the board of directors authorize the chief executive officer to negotiate and award contract ITB number 2025-139 or DES number 06719 to Gillig LLC for 10 40-foot battery electric buses with inductive charging for a not to exceed amount of $19,382,470 for delivery in Q4 of 2027.
Thank you, Jay. All right, questions? Mayor Roberts.
So these quick charges, where would they happen at? Does it affect the schedule? And how long are they on those chargers?
So it really depends. There's a lot of variability that we can put into the schedule to accommodate this. The layover locations we looked at back in our feasibility study, we looked at perhaps 12 different sites that we could implement this technology. We have not yet selected the exact precise site to put that in place, but we still have a mix of maybe 10 or 12 sites where that would make sense. It would be the least impactful to schedule the bus charging at the same time that we have a layover period or coach operator rest period. So we could align those relatively well. It's an interesting exercise to have a layover or recovery period for the vehicle as well as for the operator. So it's a bit of a new concept for us in scheduling, and we'll keep a close eye on that as we deploy more of these buses. It's not a requirement, as mentioned, for the first tranche of buses. So we'll have some opportunity to test this out, to try some assumptions, perhaps to partner again with Everett to see how this might work if we were to design some service around the Seaway charger, for example. But it would make the most sense where we have a need for a dense amount of service that's far enough away from the depots where we would want to have some buses out there kind of running all the time. But park and rides typically, or transit centers are the locations that we're considering.
So you wouldn't be looking at the need to acquire additional property, real estate, whatever to do this. This would essentially be existing park and rides and that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, the current strategy is really looking at property that we already own or operate in, possibly other transit centers where we have co-located service with Sound Transit, King County Metro, et cetera, where we could install some of these pads. Those chargers are also favored by many of the other agencies in the region. So Kitsap has had good success with this. Link has had good success. Sound Transit is speccing this as well for their service. So we have some opportunity to share infrastructure and capability. But to answer the question directly, no, we're not considering another location at this time for the opportunity charging.
Okay, and last question is kind of a silly one, but are these dangerous at all? I mean, a kid rides their bicycle or one of these things, or is there?
It's a large vehicle. It weighs a lot, and they can get up and go pretty quick. No more dangerous than a typical diesel bus.
But I mean, just in terms of being electrocuted or?
Oh, the inductive pads.
Yeah.
The bus kneels very low during the charge session, so it would be nearly impossible, at least for me, maybe a very small child, but likely not. So no, I jest, not dangerous.
Yeah.
Until the charge session is going. So if you were to throw like a tuna can on there, you might be able to cook up a sandwich real quick.
Yeah.
But no, generally speaking, not dangerous.
All right, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Payne.
Thank you. So which one charges faster? The inductive versus the overhead?
Overhead pantograph has a higher potential or theoretical capability to deliver power. The inductive pads, there is some loss because you're moving that electricity through air and they're not rated for the same amount of power delivery. That technology is improving and catching up though. So in a future deployment, maybe 5 years from now, they'll be a little closer to one another. But in the here and now, the theoretical limit is higher on pantograph.
Okay. And I know that vehicles, regular cars aren't supposed to be anywhere near where the charging pads are. But if there was an electric vehicle that, an electric car that did, manage to park on top of that, would there be any impact?
There would not unless they also have a receiver on the bottom of their car. There have been some trials that Volvo, for example, has undertaken with a single receiver configuration. It's highly uncommon for that receiver to be installed in any of those vehicles unless they're part of a demonstration pilot. So no, they could park over top of it. That would impact us and our ability to charge vehicles, but it would not interact with that vehicle at all.
Interesting. I'm glad to see this going. Thanks.
Mayor Nearing.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. So the price includes the inductive charging technology on the coach, right? Not the charger itself, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah,
That'll be
this,
something you'll look at in conjunction with other agencies or. yeah.
absolutely.
And then are we, and I apologize, there was a lot of information in the presentation if I missed this, but are we realizing a service savings over the life of the, or anticipating this service savings over the life of these coaches because you just don't have the, oil change, all the stuff that a fuel powered bus requires?
It's a great question. I think if you factor in the capital cost, that muddies the waters a bit
Yeah.
more. From a service standpoint, like servicing the vehicles, they are simpler to service. You don't have as many like fluid changes, for example. One of the primary factors for determining the overall like cost per mile is the demand charge. So how many buses you plug in at the same time increases the amount of overall demand that you put on the utility. And there's a surcharge that comes along with that. So by having a smart charging strategy, you can defray the bulk of that cost. I'm sure that there will be a briefing at some point in the future as this becomes a bit more real to describe some of these things. So there are potentials for this to have a more flat cost, I would say, than the diesel vehicles, but that is largely to be seen.
All right, thanks.
Yes, Labor Rep Perkins.
Hi, thank you. My question is, I love all of this, but my question is, we have the ongoing barrier door project going on. Are these coaches going to be coming in with that already installed from the factory? It's something watching Mike shake his head over here. Is that something our mechanics, our group here are going to be installing before they go out on the road?
It's a great question for Mike.
How about now? Great question. Thank you. The barrier door demo is due in March, and I haven't heard that it's been delayed. We will be putting this order in March, so there's not enough time to evaluate the demo and give it the thumbs up. So it will not be installed from the factory. If the demo is successful and we all agree that that's the path that we're moving forward with, the mechanics, yes. When we have a successful demo and we agree on the path forward, then yeah, these would be retrofit in.
All right, any further? I just have one. So there's a lot of exciting technology. We've got, I think, 6 companies in Washington looking at fusion. We've got with the batteries, they're looking at they could be lighter and longer life and all of that with what am I looking for? Anyway, the type of technology you're doing with batteries. So if some of this or all of it comes to fruition, is there any way working with the bus, whether it's Gallagher, New Flyer, or somebody else, are we literally just wait till we buy the next tranche of buses, right, before we add, or is there a way, are they even talking about, can they, here we buy 10 and it changes in 3 years, can they be configured or adapted, retrofitted? Yeah.
It's a great question. I think the answer is potentially in some cases we've been looking for a shift for many battery manufacturers to move away from the existing NMC chemistry to lithium iron phosphate, which is a bit more fire safe and impact resistant. Solid state batteries have been touted in the media for quite some time, and those are likely coming. Maybe not in the next 5 years for commercial products, but 10. And those would be lighter, faster charging, better durability, et cetera. Incorporating all of those components in a single bus build can be challenging. So in some cases where the existing battery manufacturer up tiers their own battery and it integrates with the existing battery management system, there may be a direct path to retrofit some of the vehicles there. It would make a lot of sense to do that perhaps at the midlife. If we have some buses where battery pack degradation has hit more strongly, then incorporating the latest and greatest technology would be very advantageous for us. In other cases, it may be challenging depending on form factor and compatibility with existing systems, but it's certainly something that the industry is looking at and considering along a 12 or 15-year useful life for the platform. How do we keep these refreshed? How do we keep them maintaining the same benefit as day one when we bought them?
Yeah. Good news, things are changing. Bad news, things are, yeah. And silicone is what I was looking for. They're trying to make batteries out of that. So, All right. Hey, so we're looking for a motion at this point, I believe.
So
I'll make,
Said
I'll make
Councilmember
one.
Merrill, you're starting.
Um,
Go ahead.
I move that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and award contract ITB number 2025-139 to Gillig LLC for 10 40-foot battery electric buses with inductive charging technology for a not to exceed amount of $19,382,470 for delivery in Q4 of 2027.
second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Merrill, seconded by Mayor Naring. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, that will pass unanimously. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks very much.
All right, we're going to move on to award of RFP 2025-138, Speed and Reliability Prioritization Study, Robert Rich. This will be speedy and reliable, I have no doubt.
I'll do it again. Good afternoon. Robert Rich, Manager, Speed and Reliability in the Planning and Development Department. So the Speed and Reliability Program, which launched in 2024, I'm the first manager of the Speed and Reliability Program, is focused on external improvements. And for those of you who haven't worked at an agency that has them, and they are common throughout the industry, the goals of that typically are to reduce bus delay and improve the reliability, such as on-time performance. We have an additional goal, to create a better customer-facing environment through those improvements. Now, some of the tools and the transit priority project types that are typically included in speed and reliability are shown on this slide. They range from bus lane, dedicated lane treatments to treatments at intersections related to signal timing, active transit signal priority, bus signals. There are a variety of other, obviously, roadway design attributes that do affect bus speeds. And we do a fair amount of work at the intersection. We also do a fair amount of work at the stops and speed and reliability programs to try to move the needle on bus delay. So I think it's worth taking a second to back up and asking why we want to institute this. And there are sort of two general reasons, both internal and external, as to how this helps us meet our agency goals. The customer piece, which I think is really in line with our agency goal of attracting and retaining customers and through a continuous process improvement, is that quite simply we save folks time and deliver a more reliable experience. These are some of the top complaints we hear from customers. And so being able to make sure that the bus arrives when it does is going to have very obvious impacts on day-to-day life, as well as making the bus and our services more competitive with other mobility options that they have. Now, the internal benefits are significant as well when you consider that the traffic congestion increases that we've been seeing in our region mean that we have to utilize more service costs to get the same service out on the road. And if these improvements are successful, we're able to continue to get the same bang for our buck when putting that product out there. So some of the activities that we've been working on in the last 2 years include the implementation of transit signal priority and active transit signal priority on the Swift Orange line to reduce intersection delay in Linwood and Snohomish County. The bus stop improvement program, which I brought to this board last year, the capital improvement program, is integrated within speed and reliability, and we look at spacing and bus stop design to optimize delay throughout those projects. We've also been looking in some targeted studies at particular choke points within the system, such as Linwood City Center Station, as well as particular places in the roadway network where we have constrained roadway geometry, tight turns and such, to try to make sure that we understand exactly the kinds of comments and engagement that we need with our local agency partners to make sure that transit-friendly designs are advanced. And we are in a continuous process of engaging on with those partners as capital improvement plans and development projects move forward and change the roadway environment. So the goal of this project, and I think it is sort of a foundational project for the program, is to come up with a capital improvement plan, a 5-year plan of projects that we can program and bring these recommendations to this board. And we're hoping that with the study, which I'll describe a little bit further, we'll have a holistic and comprehensive assessment of where we're seeing bus delay throughout the network. What are the issues on the roadways that are causing that? Because it'll range from delay at the intersection, the stop, typical traffic congestion. There are a variety of different tools, and those tools match particular problems. So we want to diagnose the issue and then come up with a recommended solution, engaging with our local agency partners to try to understand what's a feasible, cost-effective set of project concepts that are going to help us improve our service. This is going to be an exercise that uses a lot of our existing fleet data. It's going to be one that we've tried to translate and look at things through the perspective of our partners, the traffic engineers and planners and staff at those local agencies. And at the end of it, we hope to deploy an ongoing software analytics tool that we can maintain in-house to assess how we're doing throughout the life of the program and to continue to improve the delivery of those projects and make sure that they're meeting the metrics that we set for the program. So there's a recommendation before you, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, questions? Questions? Councilmember Merrill.
So are you able to work with municipalities that will let you do experimentation with things like striping and changing the service signals and things like that? And what kind of reception do you get on doing experimentation?
So I think the areas that we've found more productive for experimentation have to do with traffic signal timing and with bus stop design in some cases, trying to relocate bus stops. There are constraints that they have in terms of engineering standards that are nationally set for traffic control devices. But we are engaging and have productively engaged with WashDOT and Snohomish County and Linwood on expanding the BAT lane network on Highway 99 and trying to expand, I think, the Q jump lanes and some of the other treatments that we already have along those major facilities to local routes is an area where I think would be a productive and something that we would try to do as part of this study.
Thank you.
All right, any further? Yeah, Councilmember Payne.
Thank you. Has the multimodal change through WashDOT and the state legislature, has that improved things for things like, you know, Highway 99 and some of the major state routes?
Yes, I think so. And I think that specific project that I mentioned on Highway 99 is a good example of that, where we're seeing, a commitment from the state through their pre-design efforts to expand the BAT lane network, to build in multimodal bus stop designs and transit signal priority into those concepts from the beginning. And so, yeah, we've certainly seen the impacts of that policy trickle down.
Right. Yeah. Edmund says it's one of the first stretches with that. And so that multimodal is all that we talk about. So no, thank you. Good to know. I have a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you. When there's multiple jurisdictions, like you mentioned, would this study be identifying either ways to pay for it or identifying who would pay for like what part of some of these upgrades?
That's a very good question. And I think one that we're probably just one phase shy of at this stage. We want to look and see where those segments are and what the cost effectiveness is to sort of determine CT's investment strategy and decide cost share. I think as part of it, we have been looking in the project review that I mentioned a lot at our agency partners' capital improvement plans, and I would hope to see some synergies so that we could, as part of the feasibility assessment, identify exactly how we can leverage that both partners' funding.
If I could build on Robert's response. So with the exception of our BRT system, we've historically depended almost exclusively on municipalities in the county for these types of infrastructure improvements. And so with this approach, our strategy is to, excuse me, create the opportunity to partner financially. If we can throw a little bit on the table and incentivize others to participate, it's an opportunity, we think, to sort of grow the partnerships that we have with municipalities and make possible some things that maybe on their own aren't. So, there's an experimental strategic aspect to this.
Right, any further questions or a motion? Sure, Councilmember Payne?
Thank you. I move that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and award contract number 2025-138, a speed and reliability prioritization study to DKS Associates in the amount not to exceed $798,903.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Payne, seconded by Mayor Roberts. Any discussion on the motion?
Thank you. Hey, back.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that'll pass unanimously. All right, and final action item is approve pragmatic procurement approval, say that 5 times fast, Cash Park Transition Project. Kyle Tilburg. And Mike.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Dilbert. I'm the procurement director here at Community Transit, and with me I have Mike Suela, our senior director of maintenance, here to discuss our Cash Park operating base procurement strategy. So we'll talk about 3 things today. Mike will start with grounding us on our startup scope and timing, and then I'll take over to discuss our procurement strategy. And we'll end with what we recommend for oversights and controls on the program. We'll have time for Q&A, but feel free to pause us at any time if you have any questions. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mike.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Mike Suela, Senior Director of Maintenance. Good to see you all. We did a kind of an overview on this just a few months back, but I think there's some new board members welcome. So just a real quick, brief introduction. Community Transit has subcontracted its commuter services since the mid-'80s. Since the late 1990s, we've housed them in the Cash Park operating base. We gave them the base, we gave them the buses, we gave them the diesel, and the contractor has provided a turnkey service with people and parts to provide that service. Link Light Rail hit Linwood and the world changed. We no longer need to be in the commuter business. We can bring people to Linwood, put them on the train, and let Sound Transit take over from there. So we're going to reinvest those service hours into a robust local network directly operated by Community Transit, and we're going to wind down that contract. We've been at this over a year now. Hard to believe that, and it's been going well. At the end of last year, we completed the milestone of transitioning all community transit service to direct operations. So all the express routes that the double deckers were operating over there for community transit are now all being done by community transit employees. And we have the Sound Transit work left to do. In December, we moved the first Sound Transit route. In March, we're looking forward to transitioning the next couple of routes. And throughout the rest of this year, we have a plan to transition the routes. You can kind of see the scope of what we're talking about on this slide, where of our entire portfolio of big bus service, I like to call it, the contracted part is about 20% of those service hours. Of that, Sound Transit is the bulk of the work. It's 2/3 of the work. So it's a not insignificant task ahead of us, but we've made good strides so far. And we've got kind of a roadmap on how this is going to play out for the rest of the year while we wind down that contract and then move into Cash Park as the contractor moves out. And we'll take over that base and be operating out of 2 locations.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So to give you a little bit more context of the scale of the challenge, here's some pictures from our Hardison campus parts operation. So that parts team out of Hardison really manages an immense amount of workload to make sure that our maintenance team has the parts that they need. During our last cycle count, they counted 43,000 parts valued at $2.9 million, and that includes over 4,000 SKUs. And what we're effectively trying to do is recreate that capability at our Cash Park operations base with a really short timeline. And to do that, we need to get a little creative in our procurement strategy. So to go a little deeper on that challenge and what we're trying to solve, the KPOB startup requires coordinated purchases with really thousands of items from multiple sources under very strict timelines. And in our current operating model, anything over $150,000 for a contract comes to the board and follows a pretty standard workflow that includes us developing and advertising a solicitation, which is about 45 days, a bid review process that can take about 15 days, and then finally board authorization of another 45 days, leaving us with 90 to 120 days for each board action over 150K. We're anticipating 8 to 10 of those actions for this startup operation. And even if we do those in parallel, the sequence risk of one of those slipping is huge for the scope of what we're trying to accomplish. So to solve that, what we're recommending is a programmatic approval of $3 million for all of the contracting needs we'll have to start up the KPOB base. And that can include direct negotiation with some of our vendors. And in that model, we'd be looking at a 10 to 30 day simplified procurement action and no additional board authorization, really bringing our timeline down 75%. So I'll pause there because that's really the meat of it, to see if there's any questions before I jump over to the safeguards that
Any
we're intending to
questions?
put in place.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks
it
so
seems to
much.
make sense so far.
All right. So we're also recommending some best practice safeguards, and those include that all of the contracts that we intend to execute under this will be executed under our existing policy and within adopted budget limits. So this includes things like who can request a purchase, who can sign a contract. All of those really good best practices will be maintained during this. We have a centralized procurement department here at Community Transit, and that procurement staff will manage all of the sourcing actions. We'll also have program level oversight by our executive leadership team. And a fun one for me is I'll get a chance to hopefully come back to the board at the end of this to summarize our program activity at the end and talk about what kind of outcomes we had, hopefully having some good cost performance, time savings, and even small business engagement. And kind of one last control here is that this authorization is limited to the 2026 startup and does not extend to ongoing operations. So this will be scope bound, meaning we'll be very diligent about making sure nothing out of scope gets involved in this and doesn't go to the board. It'll also be budget bound with our budget, adopted budget limits, and the $3 million approval. And finally, time bound, because this has a time kind of delay where we will eventually be having operations over there, and this budget will not be available anymore. So with that, our recommendation is that the board of directors authorize the CEO to negotiate and award all contracts necessary to support startup and commissioning of the Cache Park operating base up to a combined not to exceed amount of $3 million, consistent with the adopted budget and procurement policy. This procurement authorization will remain limited to one-time non-recurring procurements required to support the initial operational readiness of the KPOB facility. And we're happy to take any additional questions.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Questions or a motion? Yeah, Councilmember Payne.
I want to say, you presented this to the Finance Performance and Oversight Committee, and I really appreciate the thought that was all put into this, and it's very, very, very complete, because I was looking at this skeptically. It's like, what? No. But I'm really impressed by this. I really like all the safeguards that you've packed into this. I really am pleased to see all of.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, did you have a motion?
That sounds like a motion, Councilmember Payne, to me. No.
I can read it unless someone else wants.
Oh, that has a question? I can't see who it is, but somebody online, one of our alternates has a question. Oh,
Sabina.
yeah, well, Actually, yeah, we have a motion, well, no, we don't have a motion, but usually, unless the alternate is seated, we wouldn't usually do questions there, right? I mean, I don't want to start something that, so, all right. But thank you, Sabina. All right, still looking for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, as that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and award all contracts necessary to support startup and commissioning of the Cache Park operating base up to a combined not to exceed amount of $3 million, consistent with the adopted budget and procurement policy. This programmatic authorization will remain limited to one-time, non-recurring procurements required to support the initial operational readiness of the KPOB facility.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Second by, all right, we have a motion by Councilmember Payne, seconded by Councilmember Matsumoto Wright. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Merrill.
Certainly, I'm all in favor of this. What I would hope when you come back after this concludes, that there might be information or at least a conversation around whether or not this informs some of our future activities that will streamline and lower costs on doing procurement in the future, some learning that we might get from it.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Did you have one? Oh, are you pushing your button there? At least you're not pushing my buttons. All right. With that, we didn't vote. All in favor, say aye. I was gonna say.
Aye.
I know that's where they went. Any opposed? All right, that will pass unanimously. Okay, Chair's report. The only thing I have in the report is the next regular board meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 2nd at 3. And I'll just say, it's great to be back as a chair and first meeting and nice, almost half new board or maybe more. Yeah, probably about half or so. So anyway, looking forward to a good year. Let me go through the line here so I don't miss anybody. Otherwise I will. Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you. Great meeting. Appreciate the facilitation. I did want to mention I attended the Food Bank Coalition meeting on Monday, and they expressed appreciation for the vouchers that were provided during the cold weather months and during the time of kind of uncertainty around SNAP benefits. So I encourage them to reach out to you, Rick, in case they want to continue that into other years. And to also reach out to other transit agencies to provide similar vouchers.
Councilmember Merrill.
Nothing for me today. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Naring.
Yeah, great to have you back as chair and great staff reports today. And they're always great, but there's some substantial stuff today. So thank you for that. I did notice in our packet, the security services update, a 62% increase in safety concerns over Q3. And if you compare that with 2020, I think if you compared that with the previous year, it was just a substantial increase. So first of all, grateful for our security team. Obviously, we need their work. And just wondering if we had, and it doesn't need to be answered today, any particular insight as to why we experienced that level of increase, or if I'm misreading something, let me know. But the graph just showed a 62% increase in safety concerns. And again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. We can talk about it next month. I just was curious about that. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll circle back on that.
Thanks.
I was hoping that was the S&P, but it is good. Mayor Roberts.
Well, thank you. It is good to have you back in the chair, Joe. A couple things in Stanwood. We have the KISW is sponsoring the shortest St. Patty's Day parade in Stanwood. It is like a one block affair, and it's on March 14th. We had it last year, and they asked me to come on the radio, and I was just amazed at how many people listen to that radio station. I'm getting texts and everything. So that's on March 14th. We're going to do that. On a personal note, can I share a personal note?
Yeah, absolutely.
Today's my wife and I's 43rd wedding anniversary, and so well, I should have had her watching if I've known that you're going to applaud. The applause is for her, by the way, putting up with me. And yeah, no, that's all good. And people have asked me, "What are you doing for your anniversary?" And I said, "I'm going to the community transit board meeting." So we're celebrating. It's great. It's a great milestone. So thank you.
And it's
Ji-
only
Jimmy's
40
Pizza tonight.
for community transit, so raise your way.
Oh, is he going to Jimmy's Pizza tonight, Darren Stanley?
No,
Oh.
no.
Yeah, maybe she's
I- She's Norwegian. She would really appreciate the chocolate for sure. So.
All right. Councilmember Payne.
Nothing for me, thank
Well,
you.
you couldn't follow that one, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
Councilmember Partial.
Yes, Mayor Roberts is a difficult act to follow. I would say always have your significant other watch. If you're going to do a shout out to them, that's good advice. I want to thank staff for the informative presentations today. I always like to pull out speaking of significant others, one thing I can take home and share with my significant other is from Manager Heim. If I had a tuna can, I could cook a sandwich real quick was what I learned today. So thank you for that, Manager Heim. With the proper charging source, yes, don't forget that part.
Labor Rep Perkins.
Nothing right now, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Peterson. Oh, and he's not there, so we could wait for a while for, okay. And Councilmember Matsumoto, right?
No, I'll pass this month.
Okay, all right, we'll expect more, twice as much next. Council member online, our alternates, Council Member Araya.
No comment. Thank you.
Okay, Council Member Fulcher, yep, she's there.
I am. Thank you. Nothing to report.
All right, in the room, Mike Gallagher, Council Member Gallagher. Council Member Mead is not online, and Mayor Venny. Nothing. Okay. Any additional business? Okay, we'll wrap it up. We're adjourned. Efficiency. I want to be part.